The student loan bill was signed into law on the 12th of June by President Bola Tinubu in fulfillment of a promise made during his campaign. Recently, at the National Economic Summit 2023, the president said ASU strike will be over by January 2024. He said the implementation of the student loan initiative will commence in January of 2024. The Student Loan Act seeks to provide access to interest-free loans to Nigerian students in tertiary institutions and establishes an education loan fund to help Nigerians fund their higher education. Now, who is eligible for the student loan? To be eligible, an applicant's income or family income must be less than 500,000 naira per annum. Students must also provide at least 2 guarantors, each of whom must either be a civil servant of at least level 12, a lawyer with at least 10 years post-call experience, or a judicial officer, or a justice of peace. Now, let me take you down memory lane. Nigeria also launched its student loan scheme in 1972, and that was Decree number 25 of General Yakubu Gowon's regime, establishing the Student Loan Board. So, with the Student Loan Initiative of President Bola Tinubu, how will this help reduce the hardship that students in Nigeria face with the advent of fuel subsidy removal and the rise in foreign exchange? To walk us through this development, I have joining me on the program Jide Ologo. He is a public relations expert and lawyer. Thank you for joining us on the program. First, let's begin by getting your view about this Student Loan Act, which was recently signed into law by Mr. President. Mr. Logan, if you can hear me, I am asking about your reaction, really, to the signing of this act, because initially it was meant to kick off in September, but now a new date of January 2024 has been announced. So what do you make of this and the slow takeoff of the scheme?
Because like the president expressed, it will help stop the incessant ASU strike in the country and give us a fluent course in having effective education in Nigeria, particularly at the tertiary level. Well, having said all this, my personal opinion and advice is that, like the elders say, that you don't test the depth of the water with your 2 feet. You start with one so that the other one can help you come out. I'll be advising the president that as laudable as this project is, we should consult with the stakeholders. In fact, he made a statement at the 29th session of the Nigerian Economic Summit. We need to consider the sustainability of this project. Now we are talking about giving 500,000 loan to students. How do you identify students who qualify? Right now, even dispensing the palliative intervention is, filled with different kinds of controversies. When the fuel subsidy was removed, I doubt if the consequences that followed it were clearly before the screen of that decision. And personally, I've done a search on student loan concept globally. It has not really succeeded. If you talk of a place like the United States of America, many who benefited from this loan are groaning under the burden of debt. And at such an age, it's so excruciating for, I decide to call them victims. So we need to look at our system at the global level. Let me take us back to another precedent. We came up with the anchor borrower. Now EFCC is chasing some of the borrowers who never paid back, neither deployed the facility for what it was meant for. We have been reading about law enforcement agents seeking to probe the N-Power project. So when we put all this together, I think while it may be good to come up with some concepts, we should clearly look at the implementations very well, so that we also don't end up with another precedent I intend to bring in at this moment, the transformation of our Naira in Nigeria, the redesigning of the Naira to curb ransom taken by kidnappers, to stop money laundering. At the end of the day, it plunged the nation into serious crisis. And at that point in time, the president now and commander-in-chief of the armed forces was not on the side of that policy. So I want to advise Nigeria, as we are right now with hydra-headed challenges, to weigh very well some of these policies before we implement. And I have read again the response of ASU. ASU appears not to be in full support of this project.
Indeed, Mr. Logan, if you can hear me, Mr. Logan, absolutely, implementation is key. And as you've inferred also, ASU from onset has, stood up against this, saying that it would create more problems than what it is meant to settle. They just feel that somehow the poor people who should benefit would not have the opportunity to do so. How do you then think that we can have the buy-in of ASU on one hand and then the buy-in of the students? Because since this announcement, there have been arbitrary increase in sundry fees across institutions, and students have been protesting.
That's what you call stakeholders engagement. So why don't you invite the major stakeholders? We have identified some of them. ASU is one, very critical stakeholder. The students, the parents, the private universities. Let me say this. With 500,000 now, you may not be able to put a child in a good secondary school per term. So we are now talking about tertiary education. So we need to look at all this. I mean, like I said, it's a laudable policy if you intend to make education available as stipulated under Section 18 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended. But we need to weigh it very well. A wise man once said, it is better to measure 10 times and cut once than to measure once and cut 10 times. Obviously, the stakeholders who are not on the side of the government may rise up to frustrate that policy. So what happens? That's my point. We have so many of these policies being, okay, now, fuel subsidy has been removed. In Lagos, some buy fuel for 600 naira per liter. Did we plan for that? In some parts of the country, they buy for over 1,000 naira per liter. Did we plan for that? You see, you look at the ripple effect. I think the food inflation now in the country is about 30%. So you have what you call viral effect. To implement a policy, many other things we join up to make life more complicated. And I can foresee that. And please, give me the indulgence. I have said this is a laudable project. The same time Nigeria decided to change the sign of the Naira, the UK decided to redesign their own currency, pound, when Queen Elizabeth passed on. The full implementation will not come until 2024 because they've given it time. The same thing happened in Australia. So it's good to come up with policies, but you should be more interested in the implementation than the theoretical part of the policy.
Let's look at another angle to this, Mr. Ologun.
We have dealt.
Mr. Ologun, Mr. President was speaking at the Nigerian Economic Summit on Monday, and then he declared no more industrial actions. How do you see this happen? Because the last industrial action that was embarked upon by the Academic Staff Union of Universities was only suspended, not actually, called off, as it were. So how do you see this act now work in line with that to ensure that someone who enrolls in an institution of learning for 4 years is there just for that period of time and there's no extension?
And I have 120% support for that. Any policy that we make our education system fluent. Let me ask this simple question. There's what we call diagnosis. Is it only school fees that is the concern of ASU? The answer is no. There are other demands from ASU. Let's even face the reality. Now, $1
it's over 1,000 naira. Now, benchmark school fees with the 500,000 that will be made available to the students. We are not talking about tuition. We've been arguing over tuition, some institutions trying to raise their tuition. We are talking about accommodation. When you talk about education, there are several aspects to education. You talk about the infrastructure, you talk about the software, different variables. And that is the point I'm making. I support anything, whether it is called student loan, that will make education available. But when this loan is given out, how do you go back to ensure that it pays? Where are the employment? It's not just about rolling out students through schools. Many can struggle and come out of school without the student loan. I like the student loan, and I keep emphasizing that. Go back to the best graduating students in UNILAG that got 10 million naira from the wonderful governor of Lagos State and some, supportive gifts from other stakeholders.
Yes.
She was not a rich student. It's not as if the parents are so rich. But she decided to go to school. I love this, but I don't want to start reading that the people who are supposed to benefit from the loan are not the ones benefiting.
That's a major concern, Mr. Ologun. That's a major concern which ASU itself has raised and other stakeholders in this matter, actually. But then we wait to see how, the implementation kicks off in January, just like has been declared now. Judy Ologun is a lawyer and PR expert. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Which is Nigeria. God bless Nigeria.
Well, that's our program today. Watch a repeat at midnight and at 6 a.m. tomorrow. I am Aposede Adeniran Adiremi.